Joe,
Three.
my script. Oh my god, that scared me.
All right, welcome in to the Burnt Orange Sports Network's third producer roundtable. No Robert and
No goose.
who's the other one? No
No
Goose man.
goose.
Can't believe I forgot the Goose man. But it's just us three today, unfortunately for you. But fortunately for you, this isn't a black screen. We are live on Zoom, so here to talk football, here to talk basketball. Um, man, what a week for Texas football. One more SEC championship than Texas A&M. Joe, what are your thoughts, dude?
What an experience to just watch from a broadcast perspective. I wasn't actually at the game in College Station, unlike some great fans of the 40 acres that got to travel to that game. But from a broadcast perspective, it was as good as it gets. As you saw in the
Mhm.
beginning of the game, it was pretty much just a sights and sounds thing, by trying to let you see what the rivalry means from on field, letting you hear the Aggie War hymn, letting you hear all the military themed tributes that they do according to the traditions of their history. And it was really cool to see that perspective from the beginning of the game. But it's just cool to have the game back and finally experience it instead of just relying solely on highlights and replays from LHN or something like that. Because this game, y- growing up from North Texas, you only really grow up with the Red River rivalry, and so having this game back from college football, it means a lot to the state of Texas, a state that is known to have football as a religion almost. It just means a lot to have it back. But what a win for the Texas Longhorns. Quinn Ewers, some may say he had a great game, some may say he didn't play that well. But the running game, again, was being leaned on, especially in the fourth quarter when Travion Wisner was looking like he was really almost out of breath because he was working so hard out there. 33 carries, not in two games, not in three games, in a single game. 33 carries for 186 yards. He was a man possessed. They had no answer for him all day in Aggie land. And what a response from this O line, pretty much just dominating the trenches. And men like Mr. Gooseby, who replaced Kelvin Banks, a projected first round pick. Guys like that are what will always keep Texas in the game, but you can't talk about the win without this defense because once again they've proven why they're the number one defense in not just the SEC, but in the entire nation. They just allowed no points, no touchdowns, made two fourth down stops against the A&M Aggies. What a performance from them all day long, with a lot of controversy, of course, coming in the pregame with the controversial sign that was circulating across Twitter and all social media platforms. So it's a very emotional day for the Texas Longhorns, and they found a way to escape from a hostile crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I was there. It was unbelievable. The whole atmosphere is crazy. And I mean, Joe, you talk about Wisner. Um, next we have I don't know if you guys saw the story about CJ Baxter, that he put out on
Oh, so
The
moving.
Players Tribune.
yeah,
So
on the
good.
Players Tribune. Unbelievable. And it's like it's crazy to think that Wisner was supposed to be the third string running back going to this year.
Mhm.
And that B, I mean, CJ Baxter's just there. We kind of forgot about it. Like, are we going to be seeing like a because Wisner is a sophomore, but there's no doubt he'll be on draft boards when he's eligible. Are we going to be seeing like a Bijan Robinson, um, Jonathan Brooks kind of combination like in the future?
I don't know. I think we definitely might be. I mean, obviously, when you talk about this Texas team, they're because it used to be where it's, oh, Texas can't develop. They can't develop. That's not the case anymore, especially when you have when it's literally called running back university at this point because you have so many great running backs and everyone wants to play at Texas. You look at what PK is doing on the defensive side, you look at what just basically anyone's doing on the coaching side, and it's you have people who develop. And we've talked about Quintrayvon Wisner and all the other guys, but I want to talk a little bit about Ethan Burke. He's been very silent this entire year. I mean, he had a really nice sack against UTSA, but since then he's kind of been a little quiet. So it was very rewarding for him to have that massive sack in the fourth and goal. And I mean, you got to be happy because he was kind of laying low, and for him to get that moment, he needed that. He 100% needed that. And this Texas defense 100% needed that. And it's what they thrive on.
And you talk about, coaching malpractice and, the mistakes that have happened sometimes with this Texas Longhorns team. They took advantage of the coaching malpractice really of the Aggies. And you could say they, very clearly outcoached the Aggies throughout all four quarters, especially with the run game, but also towards the end because the way this defense was playing, it was showing that Texas was really trying to rely on that defense. And the A&M Aggies pretty much just played right into their hands, especially in the second to last A&M drive, where of course Ethan Burke made that tackle for a loss to stop A&M on, well, that was knocking on the door of knocking in that touchdown instead of just going for three and potentially having a game tying touchdown drive on the following possession.
Mhm.
But again, from this defensive side of the ball, how can you not be impressed from Pete Kwiatkowski's, team this year? Because guys like Michael Taft, a guy who was once, a walk-on, eventually became a scholarship athlete, becoming one of these vocal leaders and impact players as a DB for this team. Jahdae Barron also played a great game yesterday, but you look at guys from the defensive side of the ball, and it was just dominance, especially in the trenches. If you have a
Mhm.
great front seven and cannot move the ball, you can compete pretty much with any team, any offense, I should say, in college football because there's really no answer if you if you can hardly pass the ball. They mentioned on the broadcast literally just last night how they have, I believe, the third fewest 20 plus plays given up in the nation. And when you have a stat like that in your favor, you can compete with literally anybody. And it doesn't matter if you only score 17 points. This offense pretty much just has to play okay, and you're in the game. They played okay
Mhm.
against Arkansas, still won, even in a hostile environment. So with this defense, they just play sensational, and I cannot believe just what Pete Kwiatkowski has done from 2021 all the way to last night.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a new era with the college football playoff and going off of defense. I mean, I think we're going to be kind of looking into the past offenses have been doing so well in big game scenarios. That's how college football usually is. But when you play these three, I mean, some teams might be playing four games in the college football playoffs. I mean, it's just like the NFL, like defense is going to matter,
Mhm.
like defense is really going to matter. So, anyway, you mentioned Michael Taft, Joe, and Michael Taft touched on the sign about Jake Ellinger at College
Mhm.
Game Day. Not to make it dark, but an incredibly awful, disgusting sign at Game Day. And it kind of got me thinking, and I wanted to ask this question. Um, when you go to Game Day is awesome, but the people there have full freedom to do anything. And I'm not just talking about putting up a disgusting Jake Elling or
Mhm.
something. I mean, they could put up a sign putting any English word on the English dictionary. So my question to y'all is: do you think the college game day should be censoring signs? Um,
Well, yes and no. I know for a fact they censor what they put on the TV screen, but at the end of the day, it's like people are gonna make signs, but they're gonna be signed. I think you kind of have to get more so on your moral compass and what you think is okay and not okay. That sign was by far means taken way too far. It should have never that honestly that sign should have never been a sign. Like there was a few signs where like that I was seeing and circulating through all social media platforms that I was like, okay, like yeah, that is a little funny. But there is a certain
yeah,
extent where you
well,
have to draw the line on your morals. And that was one of those signs where even people on the A&M side were very caught off guard that that was a sign and they even then like in the comments they were like, I'm so sorry, this isn't acceptable. I'm so sorry for whoever made that sign and
yeah,
apologizing for the fan
no,
base.
well, yeah, 100%. But don't you think that like game day needs to like proctor these signs? Like, I mean, we live on Earth. Like people are there are people out there who are discussing like that and
Hmm. Hmm.
don't care. And moral compass on this planet, I feel like is not the strongest thing. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of people. So I don't know. Joe, I'm wondering your thoughts.
I would just wonder, like, how would they do it? Would it just be similar to how they do it for like a big stadium
It's
event like
it's
that?
it's it's just like walking to a game and checking a bag. It's
Yeah,
the same it's the
I,
same thing.
I could
but the issue
understand
with
that because it'd be just, but it'd have to be a subjective thing, right? Because of course we'd all be disgusted by that. But then what would happen if it'd be a sign, say like, someone talking about something that applies to an in-state rivalry elsewhere that may not be offensive to the people in the crowd, but are offensive to maybe to a guard. Where do you draw the line? Like, obviously, that right there, death, making fun of that with alcoholism, that obviously draws the line right there. You clearly go too
Mhm.
far. The problem is the signs that are not as like, risky and disrespectful like
Yeah.
that. What happens with that? Like, is everybody going to be affected once you try to proctor that stuff? I just don't know how you'd enforce it, like, enforce it really far.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's all subjective. Like if you, I don't know, if you put a guy like me or you or Deb in front of like the line, I feel like we would have a perfect idea of what stands and not. I mean,
But see, I think the issue with that is you have to understand that these people have been waiting in line. I mean, when game day was at Texas for the Texas Georgia game, people were camping out the night before. And obviously everyone who was there remembers how chaotic and everyone was rushing in to the gates. So at that point it's if you're already trying to mediate and control the crowds trying to get into the gates once the pit opens, how are you going to like I'm just looking at this like a little realistically like how are you going to control everyone making sure they get in safely in a safe manner, no one's pushing, and you're checking for signs as well.
no,
Because
yeah.
game day's chaotic as a whole, especially as the pit opens. Everyone wants the best spot. So I just think if you're throwing that into it, it's kind of like, well, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, no. I mean, I agree with you. I'm just I'll be the one to be the cop or say. It's just I mean, we're talking about national television here and there's got to be more of a I think it's got to be more strict. It's the second a sign is seen by there should be people who work for game day that are strictly assigned while being on air to look
Hmm.
around for signs that are may even morally be bad. I don't know. Because there are funny signs and there are some offensive signs, but there's a fine line. I mean, some offensive signs are funny and they're offensive, but to a program or to who
Yeah.
or to a player. But I mean, that was like Joe said, making fun of death. And this wasn't like Jake didn't overdose. I mean, he was poisoned. And it's
Hmm.
all right. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to a brighter topic. I was at A&M. I was at College Station. I got in. My ticket was $0. It was not it was not the best run security. But of course I took advantage of that. And being there, I saw what the 12th man was. And
No.
let me tell you, it was pretty quiet. It was pretty quiet. So it got me thinking, where is the hardest place to play?
I would say
And
Death Valley at night. I okay, to be fair, I am a little biased. I love LSU. I LSU was the first college football team I ever fell in love with, especially when Coach O was there. So
Wow.
I don't know. There's just something about Baton Rouge with a bunch of drunk LSU fans for a night game in Death Valley. You talk about an atmosphere, that is a phenomenal atmosphere. And I was a little upset when Texas wasn't scheduled to play at LSU first year because I mean that atmosphere just like that's like on my bucket list, like to go and attend. I just think that atmosphere is insane.
Yeah, LSU is one great stadium, and I do somewhat agree with that. I might switch a little bit here to a team that is known also to win probably in Alabama. I
Mm-hmm.
guess because of that. They don't have a lot
overrated,
of
Joe.
overrated stadium. I
Been there
understand.
too.
I will
Been there too.
say last
I
year,
mean, it's the song. This what's the song they play? Dixieland
Dixie
Delight.
Dixieland
Dandelion.
Delight.
Order. Yep, that's great. Great stadium. But then again, Longhorns walked in, walked out.
You could also say, I know this is funny too, but Boone Pickens Stadium at night is also a crazy stadium. Oklahoma State, a very nice stadium, especially at night. When Texas has gone there and has some nightmares and
Mm-hmm.
completely forgotten how to play sometimes. But to go back to your conversation about Kyle Field being quiet, I don't know if y'all saw what Steve Sarkisian was saying, but
Oh,
it was the
That's
coldest
exactly
thing.
yeah.
It was the coldest thing I've ever seen. And you know what? He knew what he was doing. He's a smart guy. He knew exactly what he was saying. And after the game, he was basically saying we knew we had to slip up earlier in the season that we'd have to win out to get back to the championship game. And that Kyle Field is not necessarily as loud as he thought it was going to be. Now, I thought it was funny that nobody was saying that before the game because, of course, that was set up if Texas were to piss down their leg, eventually A&M could play the same old clips that they've done in the past against Mizzou or against LSU of the players saying that Kyle Field is not that loud. But they waited to after the game and they were kind of roping it in a little bit. Steve Sarkisian, of course, saying that it was not that loud as he thought, but he's preparing his team for higher and greater in case it did get loud. Gunnar Helm also was on Twitter saying this is y'all's loud, basically. This is all y'all had right here. And he was asked in the press conference after, but had no, response to the question he was asked about what he meant by his
It's
tweet.
easier to say it on Twitter than in front
Yeah,
of the press,
much
by
easier
the
to say than Twitter.
way.
But
But I, but I,
I thought that was hilarious, honestly.
well, I think it's very interesting because, I mean, when you talk about like SEC stadiums, like obviously, like everyone always puts Kyle Field at number one because they always talk about the 12th man. So obviously, Coach Sarkisian, he's one of those guys and one of those coaches that overly prepares for everything. He's always prepared for every situation. So in my head, this is if I was him, this is what I would have done. Obviously everyone's saying it's going to be loud. I would over prepare my team, and I think that's exactly what he did. I think when he's running practices, he's blasting out those speakers as loud as possible to mentally prepare, and it's why I think this Texas team was so poised and they were so calm when they walked in. They were like, "Oh, okay." Like they probably were like, "Well, we've heard a little bit louder," assuming he probably prepared them really, really well at practice. And he's one of those coaches that he prepares for quite literally everything. So it's this, which is why I don't put it past him. And it's part of the reason why I think that comment was also made because he probably prepared and anticipated for a little more.
Yeah, he said he
Yeah,
wasn't trying to demean him. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but he was
I
saying,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I agree with that, but I'm partially joking. Obviously, I was like being there that it was incredible, like to watch like the white towels everyone has. I learned that those white towels are bought before the season for freshmen. So everyone that's had that towel has
Technically.
had that towel since the second they got on campus. It's a $5 towel, $5 towel that they don't just get handed to. Like they bring them home, they put them in their room, and they take them out for their next Saturday at Kyle Field. So I mean, I read the culture there is unbelievable. I mean, I walking through all the tailgating, it was just so cool to see. Um, but yeah, I mean, Joe, you harped on it. Uh, Sark with that sly comment. Gunnar Helm went on Twitter. It's part of the rivalry. I feel like
Hilarious.
like no matter what, even if it was an earthquaking size sound base that happened in that game, if Texas won, they were going to call it quiet, and that's part of the rivalry. And if Texas A&M gets us next year, they're going to say the same thing. Hopefully, no flags will be planted. But
Oh, the
Mike
flag.
Elko, I'm sure Mike Elko will be saying the same thing.
Props to Steve Sarkisian, by the way, concerning the
Mm-hmm.
flags. Even though I found it very hilarious, I wouldn't have liked it if Texas did to A&M. If you saw a little bit of the clips that have been circulating around Twitter, there were a few players that were deciding to kick a little grass around the logo before before he was quick to really put a stop to it because that team could have very well planted their flag on the A&M logo if they wanted to and started something else. But there were no A&M players really around that at the time. The Eyes of Texas was being sung pretty much after Trey Wisner's interview, and the players from A&M really had already fled already. But it would have been something that you don't really want to take after. You don't want to have something that you don't want to have another media battle essentially after
Mm-hmm.
doing something like that. So it was good to really avoid those consequences and put a stop to that after I think like three or four teams were like planting flags yesterday. It was crazy. I've never seen
Oh
Yeah,
my
anything like
well,
that.
God.
it's
It's
they're
like they
overdoing
If
all.
it.
It's like
I was
they.
here for it though. Listen.
It's funny. Don't get me wrong.
If you have gone to a game with me every time someone gets into an altercation, I am the first one to yell, fight. I am prone for the fighting because I want to see someone throw hands. In all my 4 years, I have been begging for someone to throw like I want to witness a fight on the court, on the field. I don't know why. I'm rooting for it. I really am. But who was it? Michigan, Ohio State. They threw hands, and then NC State, UNC threw hands. Everyone was throwing hands. That I was like, okay, you know what? Texas is gonna do it, and I was so excited. I'm watching the game and I go, oh my god, they're gonna get in a fight. They're gonna get in a fight. But there were a couple of moments where there's just like a bunch of videos that were circulating of just like literally players getting thrown down and no flags are called,
Oh,
which I
Matthew
thought that was
Golden. My
yeah, yes.
God. I can't
Matthew Golden
believe that.
slammed. And I'm surprised no one called anything on that.
Props to his
But
composure, though.
no, exactly. And I think that's so much in what Coach Sarkisian has built here at Texas with the culture and the mentality. He always talks about in media availabilities and he addresses it like in the team. It's like it's we, not I. It's a we as the team together. So I thought it was very compelling and it's so telling about the culture, how everyone is in it together and it's we have your back no matter what. And I think that's exactly what was shown in that video. Yeah, I was circulating when they were trying. He immediately shut that down because he's like, no, no, no. He's like, we're not going to be in a fight. We're not going to do this because in his mind, it's there's a standard at Texas, and that standard is not that. Which props to him for doing that because I mean, Loki would have loved to see a fight. I would have, but I get it. But I get it. It's just like the same argument as to why Texas doesn't rush the field. It's not what they do.
Do y'all think
Wait,
these
by the way,
commentators go ahead?
yeah, by the way, Texas so should storm the field. So
So this
they
is
should
no,
storm
no,
the
no.
court.
I'm not for
Yeah,
it.
So
I don't know if we've had this debate, but I've had this debate with so many people. Field storming should be encouraged no matter what. A rivalry,
They're overdoing it now.
I
no,
don't
they're
think
I've
they're
not.
it's
They are just
every
overdoing it.
not
week.
over.
It's
They're not
every
overdoing
week
anything,
now. It's
Joe.
getting ridiculous.
It's no, no, no. My
So
thing is
what?
no, I agree with Joe. I think the field storming is getting a little ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, like as a student, I'd be like, okay, yeah, 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 this would be a little cool. But at the same time, like, you know when the last time Texas stormed the field?
I didn't know they ever did it.
No, 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 there is because I had tweeted it out. Hold on.
I feel like you have to be an
David,
underdog, for that.
yeah,
Oh
we
yeah,
we
100%.
definitely it
Let's.
would 100% have to be an underdog. Okay, the last time Texas experienced a field rushing, get this, 1990 against Houston at DKR when Houston was ranked third.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's my point. If say Texas was 2021, Texas is 5-6. Okay. I don't know who they played in the last game of the year, but let's say they played A&M, and A&M is ranked top 5. Is Texas, if they win that game, are they not storming the field? I mean,
Oh, they'll for sure storm, yeah.
if you have the opportunity to storm the field, you do it. It does not matter where,
You
which,
do
or
it.
why. I was ready to storm the field against Georgia. I was.
But
And
yeah. That the
it does,
problem with the George one was that, yeah.
we're the number one team in the country at this point. But it's Georgia. And I know I'm the minority. I'm probably the
But
1%.
it's
But Joe, Deb, it's Georgia, the SEC champions of the past 3 years.
yeah.
It's field storming is more than an upset. It's celebrating with a team over a historic win. And
Yeah.
that at its core is what it is. And it happens every week. You know why? Because college football is effing sick. And that's why. And
Oh, it's
stuff
insane this year.
and it doesn't matter that it's happening every week. To me, it doesn't matter that it's like happening so often. I mean, you've got I believe every student should have that moment to be on the field, celebrate with the players, celebrate with the coach, jump around with the media. So that's how I feel about it. And my hands are
I
up. You
get
can put a
I
gun
get
to
it.
my head. You can put a gun to my head. I'm standing my ground.
Hey, look, I understand it. I mean, but again, like, what number one team is storming the field? Could you
Exactly.
imagine Oregon storming the field? Like, if they beat, I don't know, let's say
Ohio State.
Ohio, what is it?
they
Oregon
they, sto
State,
they
the
stormed for
rival.
that, but like they weren't number one at the time, right? I mean, that was a big win. And granted, I
No,
get they were not used to
yeah.
being like big time conference competitors like that because the Pac-12 is a little bit overrated. It was overrated for a while. But Oregon, imagine if they did it last night still, like against a weak Washington, it just wouldn't
Oh,
make
that's
sense.
different. That's different.
Yeah,
That's different. I was comparing it to Georgia. And then I said, what if we
but
beat
you're
A&M and
favored.
they're the
You're at
one?
home,
Yeah,
like
yeah, I no, I 100% agree with Joe on this. Zach, you are
Normalized field storming. I'm gonna put that in
it
my
no.
Twitter
used to
bio.
mean something special when it happened every so and so, every
Now it
few
happens like
weeks, every
every
few
week.
months, not, every single week. You're seeing
Has
Syracuse storm in Carrier Dome against Miami. Like, I get it was a big win, man, but Syracuse is not some trash team. Y'all held
all
your
right.
own all year.
I was wondering this. It doesn't matter now, but if UConn came in to the Moody Center, they just lost 3 games. But if they came in as Maui champs and Texas won, I think that would have been a storming. Yet I don't think
Yes,
so.
I
But
agree.
at the
If
same
they
time,
were undefeated and if they were undefeated and Texas upset them 100% court storming, I would have been here for it. But
but then
because
yeah,
they just went 0-3, I think
yeah, no, yeah,
less
but you
controversial.
know, 2 years ago, Texas beat number 3 Gonzaga in the Moody
Oh,
Center
mhm.
and no storming. But then at the same time, I think that's because Texas beat Gonzaga by 40 points. If Texas squeaks that one out, who knows? I'm pro field storming. We're running out of time. Joe, Deb, any parting thoughts before I put this in my Twitter bio? Because
What a week. What a weekend of college football. I
College
mean,
sport. Oh
I
yeah.
I will say I was not in favor of the 12-team playoff for a long time. I was a big hater of it. I thought that it should have just maxed out at six, but we're seeing that these games have meant something for the entire season. And I thought that, we wouldn't have something to care about in the first month of action, but Georgia and Alabama proved that games still mattered. I thought that if you had games at the tail end with teams that are already kind of had their way decided, that those games wouldn't matter as much either. It would only just matter about the top heavy teams. But yet you have a team like Boise State trying to prove that they're worthy of having a college football playoff spot as a group of five team trying to punch their way through the Mountain West. And then you also have teams like Texas trying to make sure they can secure home field advantage, even if they were to lose to a team like Georgia. So it all matters. These games are still very much intense, even after a big rivalry weekend, even with an expanded playoff. I'm very
Hmm.
pleased with what I just saw this past weekend.
No, I think once the 12-team playoff, everyone had their little bits of doubts where, oh, is it gonna work? Is it not gonna work? And I think just the way the script has been playing out this year has been absolutely insane. Everyone, it's not to where it's, oh, well, yeah, they lost that game, so what? No, no, no. Now it's, oh crap, you lost a game, you might be out of a playoff. And I think the games just matter so much more. I mean, you had Clemson and South Carolina, which, I mean, if you have games like that who actually matter, no, well, not that it didn't matter, but you have rivalries that matter a little more now, and that there's actually something on the line. We saw Texas A&M. It was a spot to the SEC championship. You have games like that, and I mean, even just the way this entire college football season has played out, it's absolutely insane. And I'm here for the 12-team playoff. I'm here for it. It's
Ooh,
making everything exciting.
they're gonna expand it again, sadly.
No, don't say that. No.
I think
No.
okay, another hot take. Every league winner should get an auto bid.
Holy NCAA tournament.
Make it 64.
Yeah.
All right, Zach Davis, Joseph Duffey, Debanny Cerda, and that was the Burnt Orange Sports Network's producer roundtable episode 3. Hope you all had a fun Thanksgiving break, good week, good luck, good fortune, good health. Hopefully, you guys have a good week when it follows, and we'll see you Sunday.